Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating concept straight out of the TRT World Research Center Dictionary. We're looking at something called active neutrality. Now, I know, that sounds like a bit of an oxymoron at first, right? Like, how can you be active and neutral? But it's actually one of the most delicate, complex, and honestly vital balancing acts in global diplomacy today. So if you've ever found yourself wondering exactly how certain countries navigate massive global conflicts without getting sucked into the fighting themselves, well, you're absolutely in the right place.
So think about this for a second. Can a country actually be actively involved in resolving a war without, picking a side? It feels like a total contradiction, doesn't it? Usually, when we think of someone being active in a conflict, we immediately picture them sending weapons, providing aid, or just firmly standing behind one team. And on the flip side, when we hear the word neutral, we tend to imagine a country putting its hands up, taking a huge step back and saying, hey, not my problem. But what happens when you smash those two totally opposite ideas together? Well, that is the central mystery we're unraveling today.
Okay, let's dive into this. The official definition of active neutrality is a diplomatic stance where a state engages in conflict resolution without taking sides. So the absolute key word to focus on right here is engages. This definitely isn't about hiding away in a bunker while the rest of the world burns. No, it's about deliberately and quite frankly, very carefully stepping right into the middle of the dialogue. It's a conscious choice, a choice to be an impartial mediator, actively promoting peace and stability rather than just adding more fuel to the fire.
Now, to really wrap our heads around this, it helps to compare it to what it's not. Take a purely non-interventionist posture, for example. Being a non-interventionist usually means complete withdrawal. You're just isolating yourself from the geopolitical drama entirely. But active neutrality? That's a completely different ballgame. It's not about ignoring a massive problem. It's about bravely stepping right into the middle of it, diplomatically unarmed. You see, you aren't avoiding the conflict at all. You're actively confronting the resolution of it, acting as that crucial bridge between two parties who, honestly, might otherwise refuse to even be in the same room together.
Of course, this strategy doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It sits right alongside a few other related concepts you might recognize from the source material, things like diplomatic neutrality, pragmatic neutrality, or just a general anti-interventionist stance. Active neutrality is definitely part of this broader family of diplomatic strategies, but it really stands out because of that hands-on approach we just talked about. While an anti-interventionist might focus purely on staying totally out of foreign affairs just to protect their own domestic interests, an active neutral state is actually leveraging its impartiality as a tool. It's a very specific diplomatic instrument used to build trust where literally none exists.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of peace and, why this all matters so much. How do you practically resolve a conflict if you flat out refuse to take a side? Let's break that down. So, here is the logical, step-by-step process of how this actually plays out on the ground. Step 1 is the absolute foundation, not taking sides. By firmly refusing to align with either conflicting party, a state organically accomplishes Step 2, which is building trust. And think about it, it makes total sense. If you know a mediator has no hidden agenda, no secret alliance with your enemy, you're much more likely to actually listen to them. That hard-earned trust then allows the neutral state to move right into Step 3, facilitating negotiations. And that ultimately leads to Step 4, reducing tensions. It's really this highly psychological de-escalation process where your neutrality is essentially your most valuable currency.
So the crucial point here is understanding the broader impact of this whole sequence. The policy goals are actually profound. Active neutrality fosters dialogue and peace, it supports diplomatic engagement, it reinforces multilateralism, and it provides a much-needed platform for unbiased conflict resolution. When countries apply this, they aren't just slapping a band-aid on a single, isolated fight. They are actively aligning themselves with major global policy frameworks that are aimed at long-term stability. They're basically keeping the gears of international cooperation turning, ensuring that when things go wrong, and they always do, there is always a safe, completely impartial table where enemies can actually sit down and talk.
But hey, this isn't just some abstract academic exercise. These strategies are literally being tested in real-world diplomacy, right now, in some of the most volatile and complex regions on Earth.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the theory works in practice. The TRT World Research Center has tracked this exact concept through several modern high-stakes conflicts. Just look at December 2024. They highlighted Turkey's diplomatic balancing act in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, showcasing exactly how a neutral state mediates without bias. Or rewind a bit to June 2022, when they analyzed the conflict in Libya and its massive impact on Maghreb countries. In both of these highly complex, incredibly tense scenarios, neutral states actually stepped up as active mediators to get people talking. It really grounds everything we've been discussing in very real, high-stakes international diplomacy.
Now, let's pull the lens back even further. When we look at the big picture, stability in a multipolar world, the stakes of our current international system become incredibly clear. And just as a reminder, multipolar just means that global power isn't concentrated in just one or two superpowers anymore. It's spread out across various nations and alliances all over the globe. In a system that complex, the risk of a small regional conflict spiraling into a massive, wider catastrophe is dangerously high. And that is exactly where the sheer necessity of this diplomatic stance becomes the most urgent.
It's exactly why scholars of international relations argue that active neutrality is essential for maintaining a balanced global order, especially in multipolar contexts. The source material goes on to point out that this stance allows states to engage constructively without exacerbating conflicts. Really think about that word, exacerbating. Because if every single country picked a side every time a fight broke out anywhere, our entire global order would just constantly be on the brink of total collapse. What the experts are telling us is that prioritizing diplomacy through true impartiality isn't just some nice utopian ideal. It is functionally essential for the sheer survival of a cooperative global framework.
Which brings us to our final thought today. In a world that seems completely obsessed with taking sides, is neutrality actually the ultimate power move? We live in an era where there's just immense pressure to loudly declare who you're with and who you're against. But as we've seen today through the mechanics, the real-world policy impacts, and the historical examples, it's very often the countries that resist that pressure, the ones that stubbornly maintain their active neutrality, that end up holding the keys to peace. It completely reshapes how we view power and influence on the global stage, doesn't it? Definitely something to keep in mind the next time you see a global crisis unfolding in the news. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this explainer today, and I really hope it helped clarify the incredible balancing act it is international diplomacy.